was a rumble in the jungle. Once I heard Dad was outside again counting birds, and Mama plugged in a nightlight, and I saw the queen of the world.
Welcome back to the Golden Hour Birth Podcast. I am your co-host, Liz.
And I'm your co-host, Natalie. And tonight we're both doing a topic, another mini episode of another like personal triumph and I guess a little defeat of ours of the breast is best stigma. Liz, you want to start us out like you always do?
Sure. Probably because I had a baby first, so
yeah. It's always your turn first.
I don't know. Anyways, yeah. So breastfeeding is great, you know.
If it works for you,
that our bodies can do. How cool is it that we can provide food?
Yeah.
For another human being. It's just really cool. So yeah, when I was pregnant, I did the breastfeeding class, which was just an hour class tagged on to the birthing classes at the birth center, which I think we missed the actual birth center breastfeeding class. We had to do the regular Mercy one, and it was just a little different because they did talk about after your epidural wears off or this and that, and we were we're not doing that, so whatever. And it wasn't with our friends that we had made in our birthing class, so I don't know, maybe I probably didn't pay enough attention. I remember even during the class the lady was like, oh, if you have flat or inverted nipples, come talk to me after the class. And I was like, oh, do I have that? I didn't even know, how, I don't know. Never looked at my nipples that closely. But anyways, more on that later. But yeah, I just always thought I would breastfeed, and it's so funny how many people asked during my pregnancy, oh, are you going to breastfeed? It's it's kind of none of your business. And
wow.
Very personal question. I guess, I'll try, that was always my answer. We're going to try and see how it goes. And then I had Arthur, and it was all I could think about was I have to breastfeed. I don't know if it was just from the midwives, always talking about it, and how they had the breastfeeding circle that met. And as soon as I gave birth, they were in there shoving my boob in Arthur's mouth. It was just very, this is what you're going to do. Mm-hmm. So it somehow got ingrained in my head. I have to do this. Not this is nice and I want to do this. It was just this, I have to do this. And, I definitely had that breast is best shoved down my throat, I feel and even being at the birthing center, and I'm sure there were posters around, and the doula, I loved my doula, but that was, it's just a big thing in that community is, which it's great. If it works for you, it's great. If it doesn't, it's hard, when it doesn't work. So for me, it didn't work. I had flat nipples. Arthur had a tongue tie. I lost so much blood that my supply was very low, because breast milk is made from your blood. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was just really hard and heartbreaking to know that there's so much I don't know, pressure, I guess, or all these so-called facts, you bond with your baby better, your baby has a better immune system, your baby's smarter, all these things that you're taught or you hear that, they're not true. There's the tiniest percentage of IQ was higher. Mm-hmm. And it was a study of 40 kids. It's not something that's been studied intensively.
Mm-hmm.
And the bonding, I bonded better when I was bottle feeding,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest. Like, when breastfeeding was working, it was like, okay, but I was still worried, like, how much is he getting? Like,
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you listened to our past episodes, you know that my postpartum anxiety was from breastfeeding. So, like, that pressure is just not good for people's mental health when it doesn't work, and even if, like, you just want to formula feed, like, there's really no you shouldn't have to have a reason
Yeah.
you want to formula feed.
Yeah.
Or to formula feed. Like, if you want to do it, do it. If you don't want to breastfeed, don't do it. Like, fed is best. And, like, it took me a long time to get that breast is best stigma out of my head.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a lot of research too, like following some Instagram accounts and doing the research myself too. And, like, knowing, like we talked about, sleep is more important than breast milk, like 100%. Like, if you need to pump or, and, like, direct feeding was a big thing too. Like, pumping, it was like, well, if you have to pump, like, you can pump, whatever. But anyways, it was like learning about how new moms and dads too need, like, a consecutive 4 hours of sleep to function, basically, like, in a 24-hour period.
Yeah.
That really, like, opened my eyes to, like, we can't do it all. Like, we can't just be a milk machine.
Yeah.
24 hours a day, like, we need a break.
Mm-hmm.
And
we can't do it all.
Pumping is okay. I did it for 4 months and like, whatever. And historically, we didn't do it all. There were, like, wet nurses and, like,
yeah,
community, that like you would, like, share that with. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Very true.
It's like, yeah, it's natural, but it's not, like, it's not instinct.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's what? No, like, it's something you have to learn to do.
Yeah, and the baby.
Yeah.
So with Arthur's, like, tongue tie and lip tie, that was already so much stacked against you.
Yeah.
Not like, not even either of your faults or anything. Just there was a lot that you would have to work through to even get to a, like, sustainable point.
Yeah, and we did. We tried so.
Yeah.
Much. We did.
Yeah.
And, like, it broke me. Like, that was so hard to go through. And, like, if I had just followed, like, I remember going into my pediatrician's office after maybe, like, a week, and she was like, okay, this baby needs more food. And I was like, okay, like, I don't know how to do that. Like, I'm giving him as much as I can. He's at my boob all day. And she was like, you need to give him formula. And it was like, okay, like, I'll do that. But then I'm like, what formula? How do I give formula? I don't know. I was never educated. Like, why aren't they teaching this stuff in our prenatal classes? How to warm up formula safely, What kind of bottles to buy? Like, it's just, I don't know. And, like, you hear still, like, oh, breast is best and everything. And it's like, well, like, I know that, like, natural milk would be ideal, but it's not I don't know where I was going with that.
That's okay.
I could go on for, like, tangents about this because it's so frustrating. Sometimes you hear or, like, see on Instagram, like, people going back and forth about it, and you're just like, okay, well, I'm putting my mental health first.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, but not sorry.
It's a big part of your story. I mean, I saw a lot of it. Not probably not anywhere near what was really going on. But, you know, I mean, I saw you like working your ass off to provide milk for him and taking all the supplements and like doing the tongue tie and lip tie. Like I was there for that. And I remember thinking like, you know, she's a badass because you were putting so much into it. But then, you know, like if more than anything, he's a healthy baby. He's a healthy toddler.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was always like, well, if I try this one more thing, if I try harder, if I do this one more thing, like, am I not doing enough? Like, and like, I remember the last time direct feeding, I was like, oh my God, I'm losing out on all this. But then, like, it was so much better. It was just so much better when we did formula and I was pumping. And with Vivian, I asked for formula the day she was born. Like, I will pump for a little bit, but I need formula now. Like, she needs to eat. And that's the biggest thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah.
We could probably keep going. So for me, I knew my mom and my sister had really positive breastfeeding experiences. And I think I just went into it assuming that everything would be great. And it was really good for a long time. I always just like saw myself like trying to breastfeed and seeing how it would go. And I do remember like at the hospital, you know, he was born at 3 a.m. and like it was 4 a.m. and I'm like, maybe I should try to do this thing. And then I'm like, I've never done this. What am I doing? I remember like 2 nurses came over and they're like, do this, do that, position it that way. And I'm like, okay, here we go. And I was just like trying. And then, you know, I went to a different room on Mom Baby, and you do hear so many different ways. And I was just like, oh my God. Yeah. I was just like, oh my God, like, am I doing this right? How are we going to get here? And I remember like watching YouTube videos of like the best, like how you know that they're actually like doing it right. And like, it was best for you, best for them. And then the morning that we were like leaving, my midwife came in and was like, oh, that's an A+ latch. And I'm like, okay, great. I think we're good then. Then I was like feeling confident. And then I was really anxious about like introducing a bottle nipple or a pacifier to him too soon, or like he would forget my nipples or like my boob.
By the way, nipple confusion.
Yeah. It feels like it because like those first like probably 2 to 3 or 4 nights, I wouldn't let Sam give him a bottle. And he's like, well, like if it's my turn to get up with him, how do you expect me to soothe him? And I was like, well, just bring him in. And so like it was my turn to sleep and he would just keep on bringing him in. And he's like, I like can't do that to you. Like it's your turn to sleep. I'm getting so anxious with him, like, you know, crying like a newborn, but I have to wake you up. And so we ended up like, I'd pump bottles for the night and it went well. And then I was like, well, how can we get him to sleep longer? How can we get him to sleep longer? And it was like formula, duh, because like it fills up their bellies faster and like takes a longer time to digest. And so we introduced formula like really quickly. I think there was a part of me that felt guilty for some reason, but like seeing how good he did on it, and like we would be mixing bottles of breast milk and formula, and like seeing how like happy it made Sam and I, and like we were sleeping, and it just all made sense. And so we did. And like when we needed formula, like and I was working from home at this point too, like with a new baby doing a new job. And so I was like, well, you know, you're available. You feed him a bottle of formula. I don't care. Which then like I started birth control again. And like that made my supply drop a lot. And I was like filling up bottles like so quickly when I would pump. And then seeing like how fast it went with like the birth control. And like also I was not a good pumper. Like seeing like my bottles fill up to like barely making anything sent me into I was like so upset about it. I like wanted to go, to a year, but I made it 3.5 months. And
A lot of time.
it was a lot of time, and it went so well until it didn't, is like what I say, where I was like trying everything, like lactation cookies, finding everything I could, the teas. God, I was trying everything.
Yeah, I spent so much money on.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes. You want to try everything, and then until you like can't. And I was like power pumping too, which like, my God, my boobies.
oh my God, it's the worst.
And then after a while, he was kind of just like, the bottle seems more fun, Mom. So yeah, I remember like I'm in our room right now, and I was like sitting at this chair and being like, Sam, I think I'm done. And he's like, okay, like I support you. I'm happy with it. Like I think he's doing great. I was like, I know you're right, but like it's still really hard for me. And then I think I pumped for like another week, and then I was like, okay, if like I'm done, I should really be done. So
Pumping's so hard too,
yeah.
Like, yeah, pumping's hard.
It is hard.
Yeah. But yeah, when you were talking, I also remembered like another big thing with doing formula was the cost of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, that breastfeeding is free, so I don't want to like have to spend money on formula. And then I spent so much on breastfeeding. Like,
Yeah.
I probably spent more on that. Like, I got portable pumps. I got nipple or boob warmers. Just like all these different like little tips and tricks that I saw, and the supplements, and but yeah, it's just another thing. And I can't even imagine how moms are doing it right now with the formula shortage. Like, there's so much pressure, I'm sure, on moms. And like, I was an undersupplier. Like, there was no way for me to increase my supply. I could not produce enough to feed my baby.
Yeah.
Even with pumping, I never made enough to feed him for a full day without supplementing with formula. So like, I can't even imagine what these moms are going through and the pressure that they're feeling right now with this shortage and people saying, well, just breastfeed, or like, you shouldn't even need the formula or whatever. Like, oh, fuck you. Like,
do you know how long it takes to relactate?
Oh my God.
Why don't you put your nipples up to a pump and like you try to lactate, sir? I remember like just seeing those things of like, well, why don't moms breastfeed? And it's like, oh my God, are you dense?
First of all, there's no maternity leave in the US. So moms are going back to work within 48 hours of giving birth with no legal protections of, even healing after a birth. So
gonna bring those mesh undies with you to work.
Oh, God.
And your engorged boobs you don't even know what to do with yet.
Oh my God. I'm just like, my work had, maternity leave. Thankfully, I just can't even imagine. Like, it makes me so upset that healthcare, maternity leave, all these things are not government mandated. Why are they tied to our jobs? Why? It just doesn't make sense to me. Capitalism. Yep.
And you have to work like you're not a mom, but be a mom like you don't have a job. So
exactly,
there's no W here for us, Liz. And this is why we come here and we support the women in our lives.
Yes. I'm definitely not saying like, if you're breastfeeding, fucking amazing, like, more power to you. But like, just know that it doesn't work out for everybody.
Yeah. And the moms who choose to formula feed, we fucking love you too. We love all of you. So
whatever choice you make for your child in your body is your choice to make. You know, I'm tired of the lactivism and the shoving all these, like what you're doing might not be best for other moms. So,
yeah. And that's the tea.
Off my soapbox now.
And as Sophie Turner would say, and that's the tea. I just want to say that. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to another mini episode of ours, and we will see you next week for another birth story.
Yeah. Tune in. Bye.
Bye.